everybody, welcome back. It's Tuesday, so it's time to geek out. Woohoo! Today, this week really kind of revolves around the movie we'll be seeing this weekend, which is Ghostbusters, the remake. As you know, if you've been following my channel, I have very, very little hope for this whatsoever. Not a woman hater at all, you know that. I think by now most of us have come to understand that was just a studio tactic trying to turn things around, and they chose really poorly because they politicized something that should not be politicized. But anyways, I'm gonna go see it. I'm holding out at least like 1% hope that I'll at least enjoy, like, you know, proton packs and Slimer and certain sound effects. Maybe I'll be wrong, maybe it'll actually be good. I probably will chuckle somewhat anyways, but I don't know. The more and more I've heard, the more and more I learn, the less and less likely that is. But I'm gonna give it a chance. Maybe the trailers are just as terrible as they are. Maybe the movie's better. If not, for those of you that hate it, let's try and keep the, anger to a minimum on the channel. The only thing I can tell you is, look, it's about to come out. If it's as bad as we think it is, it'll be out, it'll be over, it'll be done with. We won't have to talk or think about it anymore for a long time. So we'll see what happens. You'll get your reviews on Friday and we'll see. So since we're doing kind of the horror comedy this weekend, I figured there you go. That's the theme for the week. It'll be horror comedy week. So we'll get into that in a bit. But you know what we like to do with these geek outs, because one of the things I like to geek out most about is movies. Obviously between movie trailers, movie reviews, I like to do the weekend box office recap. Just a quick little run through. I'm trying to, get a little tighter with this, but let's do it, shall we? Okay, so no surprise, Secret Life of Pets, but is surprise over $100 million. Like I said, kids are gonna love it. It's not as much of a family film in terms of there's not as much for adults as you would hope. And I thought the trailers gave away all the good stuff and the rest of the movie is just kind of meh. But $104 million, that is pretty sweet. $75 million budget, so yeah, okay. I guess we're gonna get a second one. All right, just give me more Gidget and I'll be fine. Number 2, very respectable, Legend of Tarzan, still hanging in there, 21 million, so that's pretty good. Yeah, total like 81 million. Its budget was 180. Yeah, not good at all. But it did at least overtake Finding Dory, which in its 4th week has slipped to the number 3 spot, still pulling in $20 million for a grand total of $423 million domestically. Wow, okay, well, maybe we'll get Finding Hank. I'll hope for that. Number 4, Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates. Cool, I really want to see this one. $33 million budget, but it pulled in 16.6 mil for its opening weekend. I'm pretty sure it's an R-rated comedy, so that is pretty good. It'll probably slowly but surely make its money back. Between domestic and foreign, that should happen. Number 5, Purge election year. So its 2nd week, and it pulled in 12 million. It already way overdid its budget in the 1st week. So it's a grand total of 58.7 million with a $10 million budget. Yeah, we will be getting Purge films forever, as I said last week. Until they get that point as that all franchises do and they die. Number 6, Central Intelligence, still doing really well, considering it's in its 4th week, did 8 million, putting its total at 108 million with a budget of 50. So yes, maybe we will actually get the sequel. I think word of mouth really did help with that movie because it was really good. Number 7, in its 2nd week, BFG, the Big Fucking Giant. I know it's Big Friendly Giant, but come on. It really has underperformed, had a massive drop for its 2nd week. Word of mouth on it is horrible. It pulled in 7.8 million for a grand total of 38.9 million with a budget of 140. I guess, maybe Spielberg has lost his magic, perhaps. I don't know. It's such a shame. But anyways, after that, number 8, we got Independence Day Resurgence, which I guess maybe word of mouth is helping it a little bit. Of course, it's dropped still because it's in its 3rd week, but it's doing okay. 7.7 million. The movie is what it's supposed to be. I don't know what everybody was expecting, but I enjoyed it because it was what it was supposed to be. Big, mindless, stupid fun. Big 1950s remake, basically. So, 7.7 million, putting it 91 million. Yeah, unless Overseas did really well. Shallows at number 9, cool. We still haven't gotten to see this. It pulled in another 4.8 million, putting it at 45.8 million with a $17 million budget. Sweet, more shark movies in the future. Okay, this is the one I'm kind of excited about. This is quite surprising. Number 10, Sultan. If you saw our Secret Life of Pets reviews, we mentioned this because we watched the trailer in the car. It was playing, and we kind of joked we would have rather seen this. This is a Bollywood film that got a very limited release here in the States, but it jumped into the domestic box office at number 10. So it looked really good, so I guess it is really good. They pulled in $2.3 million, so it doesn't have any idea on its budget, but that's only like on 283 screens, so that is pretty phenomenal. That is a really stellar per screen average. Not the greatest ever, but really stellar, particularly for a foreign film. So yeah, sweet. Now I really, really want to see that. Just a couple honorable mentions. Swiss Army Man dropped to number 15, but you know, it's already out of most theaters, which is a bummer. It is at the Kentucky Theater, so I might get to see it again this week, but I don't think I have time. Just gonna have to watch the Blu-ray a billion times. If you get the chance to go see that movie, go see that movie. It is incredible. It pulled in $675,000. It was only on 600 screens, so, you know, grand total of $3.1 million, so that's really good for what that movie is. So, all right, cool. Anyways, I could go on. I'm interested. I've already read about the independent films. But if you want to know more, go over to Box Office Mojo. You can find out all the cool info. But now we'll shut up. Now we'll get into the good stuff. Let's get into the theme of the week. Horror comedies. All right, unlike last week where I was doing animal movies, and even when it came to the animal horror movies, I had seen very, very few of them. This time, I've seen almost everything that pops up when you search horror comedy movies on Google. So let's run through these and see if I can tell you what my favorites are. I already know what my number one favorite is, and we'll point that out when I get to it. Some of the others, it's you know, there's some great ones in here. So we'll see. Shaun of the Dead. Okay, yes, that definitely qualifies as horror and comedy. It's definitely a comedy. It definitely has some horror, because like by the end of that movie, I felt bad. Like it was like a real horror movie. I cared about the characters and I hated to see them get lost. So, excellent. Cabin in the Woods, yeah, same thing. Definitely a lot of comedy, but there is some actual horror. There is some terror and scary stuff in there. All those monsters and stuff, yeah, if you haven't seen that one, go see it. Twisty-turny, really cool. Zombieland, yeah, that qualifies. That's also qualifies. Is it an Australian movie? Oh God, that was terrible. Anyways, Zombieland definitely qualifies. Good time, very funny, you know, lots of action. I'm pretty sure we're getting a part 2, right? Okay, Tucker and Dale versus Evil. If you have not seen this movie, go fucking see this movie. It is a masterpiece. My only complaint about this and why it's not in my top 3 horror comedies is I really think this was more of a comedy. It's been a while since I've seen it. I don't remember any actual horror in the movie, so I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it. So just go see it. It's gory and stuff, but I could be wrong, you know. So if you want to talk about that in the spoiler in the comments, don't spoil it for people. But you can tell me there was horror and whatever, because one of you guys reminded me about it, and I'm like, oh God, yeah, I haven't seen it in forever, and I love that movie. It's one I push on everybody. I'm ready to rewatch it. Of course, we got Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. Yes, those all count. Especially Evil Dead 2. I guess Evil Dead doesn't totally count as a horror comedy because, you know, it wasn't very comedic, but it was my favorite. But Evil Dead 2 is everybody's favorite generally, and that one is fantastic. I mean, there's no denying that. It should be in my top 3. I don't know if it is. We'll figure that out at the end. It might just be so overplayed. Dead Alive, Peter Jackson at his absolute horror finest. Again, though, I don't know how much horror there actually was. There's a lot of gore and there's some creepy shots and stuff, but I don't know that I was ever, you know, terrified or scared in that movie. Gremlins, yeah, okay, and there's some really creepy shit, especially if you're watching it as a kid, so that's really good. Army of Darkness we mentioned, although that one's less horror, more comedy. Of course, the original Ghostbusters. The horror elements aren't really there in this day and age at our age, but as a young child when that movie came out, you know, it was quite terrifying. Even Mary said that it actually kind of terrified her. They have Scary Movie on here. That doesn't count. It's horror parody. It's not actually horror. It's not scary. It is funny, though. Slither, yeah, okay, that had horror. That had comedy. That counts. James Gunn is awesome. American Werewolf in London, yep, very, very strong film, very strong. Haven't seen that in a while. Little Shop of Horrors, this is not the Corman original, this is the musical remake. I would count that. There's some terrifying stuff in there. You care enough about the characters. Killer Clowns from Outer Space, that pops up out of a lot of our lists. Absolutely love that. Scream, it's hard. I almost wouldn't put that in the comedy side of it, but it does have just enough comedy to eke into horror comedy for me, though I think it's really just a great horror film. Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, okay, in its day, yes, the horror probably played. Doesn't play now, it's definitely considered more of a comedy. Haunted House, that's another one of the Wayans Brothers parody movies, so it doesn't count as horror. Gremlins 2 was funny. I don't remember if the horror actually played. They have Young Frankenstein in here. Great comedy. Nothing scary about that. Arachnophobia, that is a good call. That definitely is creepy, scary, and funny. Beetlejuice, comedy, not really scary. I guess there's a couple moments of scary, but not enough to really classify it as a horror comedy. My number 1 is next on the list, Return of the Living Dead. Yes, we'll geek out about that in a minute. That is my number 1 all-time favorite horror comedy. Dead Snow, I don't know, I heard a lot about that. I was not impressed. Reanimator, definitely some dark comedy, but more of a horror. Tremors is in my top 3. That is a great mix of horror and comedy. I love Tremors, I love the whole series, but that first one is just perfect. See, Night of the Creeps, that is another great one. Definitely creepy, pun, and definitely funny. Eight-Legged Freaks, yeah, well, you get me on the horror side because of the spiders, maybe not for everybody. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, funny-ish, not really scary. I don't know how that made the list. Monster Squad, fantastic fucking movie. I guess at the right age, it can be scary. Fido, it's been so long since I've seen it, I don't remember how scary it was, but I remember really enjoying it. Bubba Hotep, that is another fantastic movie. If you love Bruce Campbell, you need to see this movie. You really do if you don't know anything about it. Bad Taste, another great early Peter Jackson film. Definitely comedy, don't know how well it fits into the horror genre. It's more of a sci-fi, it has a lot of gore. Warm Bodies, it's a good movie, but definitely not in my favorites. Haven't seen What We Do in the Shadows yet. Don't know anything about Housebound. I've got Krampus, I'm anxious to see it, haven't watched it. One of you guys also mentioned Idle Hands, that definitely counts. I think the horror element skews to less of the horror veterans, but there is definite horror in there, definite comedy, and characters I care about and hate to see bad things happen to, so I will count it. The Fearless Vampire Killers, haven't seen it. Evil Dead, we already talked about. Final Girls, that is a really, really good choice too. Some good horror, some good comedy. I think if you were younger, like if you're new to horror, you're really gonna like this one. Us veterans, we can really appreciate it for a lot of things too. It wasn't a perfect movie, but it was pretty close. The Frighteners, the first American Peter Jackson film. Yeah, that totally counts. The horror is not as horrific as a true horror fan might think, but still has some creepy, scary stuff. Creep Show, yeah, that could count, although it's not a lot of comedy. It's really just kind of a hint of dark comedy in that. I don't know how Rocky Horror Picture Show made it on here. I love Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's horror, I mean, it's comedy, it's sci-fi, but is there really anything horror about it other than maybe Eddie, that one scene, and you know, maybe the dinner scene, but it's not really enough for me to consider that a horror film. You can let me know what you think in the comments. Lost Boys, great horror film, it has some comedy in it. I don't think it counts as a horror comedy. Cemetery Man is fantastic. It's a different kind of comedy. It's more of a cerebral comedy, maybe a surrealist comedy, and there is some creepy horror stuff going on in there. John Dies at the End. I need to watch that. I just haven't gotten around to it. Fright Night, maybe. I don't remember it well enough. The original Fright Night. I guess that probably counts. That probably fits in like a Gremlins / Monster Squad kind of tone for horror and comedy. Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. That is another great one. Go see that if you haven't. Basic concept is a serial killer decides to invite a documentary crew into his process of how he becomes a slasher and all this stuff. Some great twists and turns. It starts out very light and comedic, and it gets very dark by the end. Love it. Feast. Ooh, Feast. Feast might be, okay, ooh, man, I'm gonna have to do a top 5. Love Feast, John Gulager, the best Project Greenlight movie to ever happen. They totally screwed it over by not releasing it wide theatrically, because the horror community, we all loved it. It did get 2 direct-to-video sequels that are more gore comedy than horror comedy, but Feast itself, the first one, actually has some creepy stuff in it. Drag Me to Hell totally is a horror film, don't remember the comedy elements. So, all right, let's figure this out. So, Return of the Living Dead, absolutely my favorite. Perfect blend of horror and comedy and creepiness for me. Have loved that forever. There's just so much good stuff in there. Great zombie designs. You know, I mean, Romero will always win for me, but outside of the Romero-verse, by far my favorite zombie film as well. I can watch that time and time again. I'm always quoting things, you know, like this job and stuff like that. You mean the movie lied? You know, so I love all that stuff. Tremors may be part. Let's go ahead and put Feast at number 2. Okay, no. All right, we'll go Evil Dead number 2 as my number 2 because it is hard to deny that movie. The only reason I feel like leaving it lower in my list is because I've seen it so much, but I mean, it still holds up. It's still totally watchable. 3, we'll go, I guess, to Feast because I really, really love Feast. I need to rewatch Feast. There's so much great stuff in that. Maybe we'll go 4 with Tremors because that is awesome and you can't deny Kevin Bacon. And I don't know, what do I want to go for number 5? I know I usually only do like 3 of these, but there's so many good titles in here. And you know, I think we've got a really good top 4. Okay, so we're looking for number 5. Ooh, boy. I would put Tucker and Dale versus Evil in here, but again, I don't recall it being really, truly horrific. Let's go Frighteners. Why not? We'll go Frighteners number 5, and there you have it. There's my top 5. What are your top 3? What are your top 5? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What did I not think of on this list? What's not on this list I should have thought of? I'd love to know what are your favorite horror comedies. Are you going to check out any of the ones I've said in the suggestions? And how hard are you going to geek out for Ghostbusters and all this stuff this week? Let's talk about all that stuff in the comments. You knew I was going to say that because that's what I always say. Let's comment, let's geek out, let's freak out, let's do it, let's have a good time doing it. Other than that, you can give me the thumbs up of encouragement because I really love being encouraged and the thumb looks really cool when you do it. Plus, subscribe if you're new here. We do all kinds of fun, nerdy, geeky stuff every single day on the EricButts channel, and share with your friends so we can all geek out together and make this one massive nerd party. I'm down. Are you down? Are your friends down? Let's do it. Other than that, other than that, Patreon link. You don't get enough of me saying other than that, then you can click on the Patreon link. Maybe you'll find some more. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. I don't know. Just check it out and see. It doesn't hurt to look into it. Okay, guys, well, I've talked enough. I'm geeked out enough for right now, and I'm going to shut up, put this thing together, and get it out for you, and I'll see you guys later.